Hello everyone and welcome to SkillCapped. I'm Notorious Dub and today I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about the up and coming go-to eco round meta weapon for a ton of high level players, the Marshal. Now the Marshal has a ton of benefit and reasons for its recent success, and for you to understand and use the weapon properly, we're going to be going over all of the changes that shifted the Marshal into the meta, comparing it to the other choices that you have, a full playstyle guide, and the most effective maps and angles to utilize the Marshal with. But before we get into the meat of the video, as always, we have to start with our question of the day. And today I want to ask you, what is your go-to eco round weapon in Valorant right now? Personally, I've been in love with the Sheriff and Bucky ever since the Stinger nerf, but with the Bucky nerf, I've been picking up the Marshal and it feels really nice. The scope gives you the ability to get those consistent tags and picks off at long range that really kind of turns the tides of those eco rounds that you really have no business winning. And I know that the Stinger also has a place alongside the Marshal and Sheriff, but that's exactly why I want to hear from you guys, because really there's no set answer to this, and I'm sure a ton of you have different opinions on this than I do. So let me know in the comments down below, what is your go-to eco round weapon right now in Valorant? Alright, so first things first, we have to go over the major changes that started to shift the Marshal into the meta. So first of all, the Marshal saw a direct buff with your scoped in movement speed now being 90% of your original movement speed without scoping in, whereas before the change it was at a 76%. This is a 19% buff to the total movement speed you'd have while scoped, meaning your peaks are about 19% faster because you're generally going to be scoped in when going around corners, essentially making you get shots off about 19% faster and 19% harder to hit on your peaks at the same time. Combine that with a price change of 1100 credits to 1000 credits, even about 9% decrease, and you have a weapon that's able to be purchased nearly every round, 2 shots to the body, 1 shots to the head at all distances, and is insanely fast and mobile to use. But that's not all. The Marshal isn't just creeping into the meta because it's been powered up. The other favorites in its immediate competition have both been murdered in terms of power with their recent nerfs. So the Stinger was the original go-to, but with the massive accuracy nerf and rate of fire nerf, the aggressive fast rush strategies that allowed tons of teams to force buy on round 2 after losing with almost no consequence pretty much made that strategy obsolete, meaning the slower pace setup of the Marshal has been heavily buffed by the nerfing of the fast Stinger rush strategy, inching it even closer to the meta, but it was still overshadowed by the Bucky. And the Bucky was essentially the defender's answer to the Stinger rush, playing those super close dangers, but the Bucky's range was gutted in favor of close range kill potential, making it a much less viable and consistent gun, because you have to be within that 8 meter range to actually get those kills consistently. So defenders are putting down the often unreliable Bucky in favor of, once again, the slower paced, much more reliable Marshal, because you can choose your own fights and the angles that you take those fights from. And the combination of all 3 of these changes drove the Marshal heavily up into the meta, and only really leaving the Sheriff to heavily match up with the Marshal. But that doesn't really mean the other weapons are useless. So let's get into the detailed weapon comparison so you guys can make the right choice. But remember, if you're serious about improving, then go to SkillCapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you how to win more gunfights, master your agent, and so much more. It's also backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. So come join over 500,000 satisfied members of SkillCapped, improve that KDA, and get the rank you've always wanted at SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. Alright, so first things first, you have 3 main competitors to the Marshal: the Stinger, the Bucky, and the Sheriff. In relatively close proximity though, you also have the Spectre and the Ares for the common eco rounds. Now in the context of these guns, the Ares is going to be situational, and you can't really replace the Ares with anything whenever you're talking about the wall bangs and the certain angles that you have in mind. But the Spectre is usually going to be the go-to for force rounds. But having 1 or 2 Marshals on your team can go a very long way with 3 Spectres on the other players. The Marshal is going to give you that early round pick pressure that the Spectre just really can't pull off without overcommitting to a fight, and the Spectre then serves as the backbone for taking the site and or defending the site whenever the enemies actually get close, and then the Marshal can take back over holding the post plant. And this goes for round 2, where the Marshal is overpowered for being able to one-shot to the body any enemy without armor, and it's also great on rounds where the enemy has armor and rifles because the Spectre really isn't going to do the job well enough. But the Marshal does give you that opportunity to get those picks from very safe areas that you need to get to win those save and force rounds by getting those early round picks that you can then turn into a 1 round. And this is especially true for maps where you can abuse angles with long sight lines like Icebox or Haven. But let's look into the numbers of the other guns. So initially the Stinger was incredibly accurate. With 25 damage per shot to the body and an 18 round per second fire rate, you could consistently get a less than 0.27 second time to kill at all ranges, making it the fastest automatic weapon in the game. But with the recent nerf, the Stinger now has a 0.31 second time to kill, and it reaches max bullet spread at 4 shots, not to mention the recoil still climbs rapidly after that, making that that 5th and 6th shot that you need to get the kill finished off almost impossible to come by at any sort of range. And then on attacker side, that makes the stinger strategy a lot less consistent because the defenders get to choose the angles that they play in, and any kind of range makes you pretty much obsolete. So having at least a couple of marshals on your team able to clear out the long angles in isolation before you enter the bomb site makes the stingers much more effective because you don't have to worry about those long angles because your marshals have already cleared it. So these marshals essentially let you take the fights to the defenders who are choosy about their fights instead of just hoping your stinger can make it that far. But then the Bucky now suffers the same fate as the stinger, but is more of the defender's sided weapon instead of attackers. The Bucky actually had its right click nerfed to only shooting 5 pellets instead of the full 15 that it originally had, making one-shotting enemies to the body with a right click impossible, and really only being able to one-hit kill enemies from under the 8-meter threshold with your left click. And as you get to the 12-meter plus range, the Bucky becomes very inconsistent and lacks a ton of damage because the right click was absolutely gutted. Also, by playing these hyper close ranges of the Bucky, you remove yourself from being able to get early information on the enemy team and dedicate your round to sitting in a corner hoping an enemy comes to you. The Marshal, however, allows you to hold down long sidelines without danger of getting killed with no chance to get the tag back, gives you the early round kill pressure the Bucky doesn't, and gives you the ability to get that early information that's crucial for rotating and defending effectively. But with the choice of the Marshal over the Stinger and Bucky being obvious at this point, the Sheriff still holds huge value. Now, the big reason the Sheriff is picked over the Marshal is because it has a faster rate of fire, and it can still one-shot to the head at close ranges, making it a little better for taking over a site and clearing out close corners, but the 3.5 times zoom of the scope on the Marshal makes holding longer angles super effective and makes hitting those long-range headshots so much easier. So the trade-off really just comes down to long range versus close range. Not to mention, the Marshal actually has a very accurate no-scope with a first bullet spread of 1, which is only slightly worse than the first bullet accuracy of the Ares and the Odin. But with that range trade-off, you also pick up almost twice as much damage to the body from the Marshal and guaranteed one-hit kills to the head, where the Sheriff can hit for 145 at long range. Overall though, the Sheriff versus Marshal choice is a toss-up, and if you're playing super long angles, the Marshal is going to be the go-to, where the other angles the Sheriff could hold a little bit more priority. So next up, let's talk about the playstyle with the Marshal, and most people think you should just play it like a cheaper version of an operator, and in a way that is very effective, but the Marshal has a ton of advantage that the operator just can't come close to utilizing. So firstly, you are still going to want to hold those long sightlines just like an operator, because that 3.5 times zoom and the high damage round is going to make you way more effective on the first shot than anyone who peeks the corner on you. And just like with the operator, you're going to want to play angles that allow you to get back behind a wall or reposition to an off angle before you have to fully commit to a fight. But this actually goes even more so with the Marshal, because that movement speed buff is going to be the bread and butter of your Marshal gameplay. So the operator's biggest problem is that it's slow on peaks and retreats, while the Marshal has a faster base walking speed and a much faster scoped in movement speed. This means you should be abusing your ability to do quick peeks and get a shot off and get back behind cover quickly. And typically, unless enemies peek very close to the angle, because of the slow of the bullet whenever you hit enemies, you can generally chamber your next round and peek back out to get the second hit on enemies to finish them off before they're able to fully get back behind the wall. So take your Marshal, post up on your long angle where you can get a clean shot off on an enemy that peeks, but don't be afraid to re-peek that angle quickly to try and get another tag off. But arguably even more importantly, when the round starts going bad and you're forced to retake a site, don't be afraid to get in there with your Marshal. Now the operator is terrible at close range. We all know this because the hipfire accuracy is atrocious, but the Marshal has a faster fire rate and it actually has a decent hipfire accuracy, so you should really view this as a slug shotgun when it comes to those late rounds, that whenever you use it, it does 100 damage to the body and 1 shots to the head. And upon getting tags that don't kill enemies, swap to your pistol and finish them off, because the Marshal's no-scope is surprisingly accurate and can win you a ton of rounds if you're just not scared to use it. But let's pivot and talk about maps, because that's arguably the most important variable to work with when picking up the Marshal on your eco and force rounds. So first things first, Icebox is one of 2 god maps for the Marshal. There are a ton of headshot angles you can play and abuse to get early peeks on enemies, and a ton of angles where you can make contact with enemies early, like B-long, or on top of the box on the back side of A, peeking into the entrance of A, or just playing in mid. All of these angles are incredible for the Marshal because you're going to be using a scope against non-scoped enemies, making your shots way more consistent, and with the high damage rounds, you're going to have a huge impact on the round, even if you don't manage to hit the headshot and snag the kill. Another incredible map for this though is going to be Haven. The Marshal is great for both mid control or C control because both of those areas are going to have teammates in close proximity to help you hold fast pushes if they come, but they give you a ton of opportunity to hold those long sight lines and pick up kills on enemies pushing for aggression on the orb C long or looking for mid control. The Marshal is also great for holding long A, but often gets overrun if you don't have another teammate doubling up on site with you, so be careful of that. On buying though, the Marshal is actually super viable because you're going to have other people on the bomb site helping you stop the rushes. But the Marshal can dominate B long, the walk into hookah from on top of the box on site, or the showers or short A entrance from the heaven peak with the Marshal. But keep in mind, retaking with the Marshal on bind can be a huge pain, so you're usually just better off holding down a long sight line and letting your teammates retake while you're constantly having that pressure forcing enemies not to peek them. On split though, the Marshal really just has viability playing in mid on defender's side, because you can hold down that long sideline initially, make sure enemies can't walk through, but it also gives you the ability to snipe through the B bomb site take from B heaven, especially if the enemy team does the sage wall strategy, giving you that perfect headshot angle on enemies crossing through. And then we have Ascent, the other god map for sniping, where the operator absolutely reigns king, and so will the Marshal. On both attack and defense, the Marshal has huge impacts in rounds and games, and the only place to truly worry about is attempting to hold B site with a Marshal. This is just because that first peek into B main should be the only safe shot you get off before you're absolutely bum rushed when they notice you have a Marshal. That doesn't mean it's bad to take that initial peek, especially if you're playing someone like Jet, but mid control and A are both way safer places to play because both give opportunities to take shots and back off relatively safely through, and that's really what you're looking for when you're picking a Marshal. You're looking to either take bomb sites that are somewhat open and enemies like to peek or hold on, or to just hold down bomb sites with long sight lines where you can reposition back, get multiple shots off before the enemies fully take the site, and hopefully snag a couple of kills and make that round easier in the long run. But remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. But what do you guys think about the Marshal in the meta right now? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notification bells on, because we here at SkillCapped have a ton more comprehensive premium guides coming your way that you're going to want to stay up to date with so you can stay ahead of the pack. As always, I want to thank you for spending this little bit of your day with us, and I'm Notorious Dub, signing off.